Welcome to the West Tigers podcast, episode number 347. Joined by Gary Watson and Jordan Prime tonight. Gary, another reshuffled side. We're a bit like the West Tigers. We're trialling some players for next season.
Yeah, I think the last couple of episodes we've gone as deep as the Ron Massey bench to call up Nick. I think we've got a little high standard player here tonight.
Well, Jordan, welcome. I think this is the second time you've been on. I listened to your last one. I don't think I was on it. I think it was with Nick and a couple of the other guys with Gary.
I'm surprised you listen then, mate.
Oh, I do listen. I'm not like yourself and only listens to your replays. But I won't ask you for one specific word because I didn't give you a heads up, but what did you think of that performance against South on the weekend? Was it a missed opportunity?
Most definitely. I think a lot of us probably, when we've watched the first few minutes of the game and they got to that lead rather quickly, we thought, okay, here it comes. It's going to be another long occasion, just a game that we're just going to get trampled over. And then when we started to fight back, it was like, okay, this is good. We're starting to see some of the green shoots, some of the attack that we like, and then we just got to that, third quarter of the game and capitulated.
Geez, it's a long season, Gary. I mean, the quicker they go to 20 teams, I reckon, the better, because surely then you could go back to just playing every side once, and the poor old fans like us that are stuck at the bottom of the ladder with 6 weeks to go by August, we can pack up our tent and go home.
I don't see them ever reducing the season. I just think there's too much money in it for them. They love how many weeks it covers. But I think even if you're going well, you get to this point of the season and the last 4 to 5 weeks, I think everyone's looking for the semi-finals start to around that time. Not just fans of teams doing poorly. I think if your team's doing well, you'd have your eye on the semi-finals at this point of the season anyway.
But you're like me, Gary. You're a big NFL fan. I'd argue rugby league's a lot more physical than the NFL, even though some of the hits are just as big. It's probably definitely not as fast, and their season is way longer. I know our players have paid well, but don't you think there'd be? I know the broadcasters sort of run the game, but don't you think, like the NFL, they make a big deal of going from 16 games to 17 games,
and a lot of complaints about that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's no doubt that the season's too long. I think there's no doubt that probably that 22 game mark that we used to have, the 22 rounds back in the days of the Winfield Cup, I think that was just about that perfect length. And I think this is about a month too long at the moment, especially when you're looking down the barrel of possibly your third straight wooden spoon. It's a long, tough slog towards the end of the season.
We will preview the Warriors game and, of course, have Yoddy's quiz at the end, but plenty of West Tigers news, Jordan. Not all good news this week, but we'll start with Stefano. Still up in the air. The team, I think, flew out to Auckland tonight, so they're not expecting a resolution, I suppose, this week, which was originally sort of panned that there could be a decision this week. It's pretty much a bit more than rumoured that he's met a couple of times with Melbourne. There was talk today that the Bulldogs have sort of entered the race. Dolphins also in the race. How do you see things playing out? Or do you think even in his mind he's still undecided?
I think he is undecided. Leaving it to after a game when he could be one injury away from having all these offers pulled, like if he does his knee or anything major on Friday, all of a sudden those offers are going to be, null and void essentially. So I think he's even sort of kind of torn about where he's going. But I think, like most Tigers fans, I think we're just over it. His performances the last month have been terrible. We don't see the value. We know he's got the potential, but I think a lot of us are just sick of paying for potential now. And I wouldn't be surprised to go as far as saying that there's probably more of a 50-50 split of fans happy to see him go.
In regards to that injury risk that he's running, he does have a contract for next year. So no matter what, he's got a contract to fall back on at the West Tigers. So that's probably why he's not that concerned about it. It's not like he's technically off contract. He has a right to walk out on the contract that he has for next year. So he has that backup. So I can understand why he's not in so much of a rush to get this sorted. I do think it's affected his performances. I do affect it's really having an impact on the fan base. But it's time to make a decision. Like, I think it's dragged on for long enough. If this club is going to be able to go into the market to replace him if he decides to leave, then we need to know as soon as possible. And the more this drags out, the more difficult that gets for the West Tigers.
It's been hard to sort of gauge the motive, Jordan, whether, some people have thought, well, this is all about money and dragging it out for as long as possible to see if you can get maybe more money out of the Tigers, or is it all about winning? But you'd think, like, if you've met twice with Melbourne Storm, and they are a club that's all about winning, then your decision would be made. I don't know if he'll end up at Melbourne. I'm sort of more thinking we might lose him to another Sydney club if we do.
The news of the Bulldogs jumping in, I think, shocked no one. To be honest, like
a real Bulldogs move, isn't it? Phil Gould written all over it.
100%. There was talks about it when Gus was on 100% footy a couple of weeks ago, when he was sort of basically prompting and promoting Stefano to leave. Most fans read that as like, okay, well, they're going to throw their hat into the ring sooner rather than later. And then I think today's news was no real surprise. I'd love to know, they must have Nick Politis's sort of kind of accountant or something along those lines. So I'd love to know how they're doing it. But it's really coming across that if it was all about money, I think we're going to be the top offer. I really do. I think we're going to be the top money offer. He probably would have taken it already. But I also think they would have got the impression from Richo that they weren't going to squeeze any more money out of us to make him stay.
Is there any thought to that the Bateman kind of loan that I know Eddie's going to raise in a moment, that Bateman loan freeing up around 150,000, that timing of that being as these final negotiations are happening with Steph, that may be just a little bit of cash they can put across to him as a booster?
I mean, that definitely makes a little bit of sense, but I will get to the Bateman thing, and there was a bit more breaking, not news, but I suppose rumours around, his departure tonight. Just on Isaiah Papali'i, Gary, he was in front of the press at Concord this week, talking, I suppose, for the first time in a couple of months since he made his decision, or he said it was a mutual decision that moving on to Penrith a year early. He was contracted for another year. Originally, I was a bit annoyed with the quotes because I only saw a couple of them, and he sort of gave a few excuses about playing with different halves. But to paraphrase, he did say, Richo's here making some pretty bold moves, but credit to him, he's doing it the right way. Where do you sit on Papali'i's one? The fact that, yes, he's underperformed, but it's not like at the moment we got anything in return for it.
So the first I heard about this story was from you, Eddie, and just based off those couple of quotes that you said. I didn't read the article until this evening, and when I read the article, it appears that his management went to the club, asked about an extension or where the club saw him moving forward after next year. And by the sounds of it, he was told that they weren't in a position to make an offer at this point for him. And that's when he asked to go whether he could speak to other clubs. Now, based on his form, I can probably understand the club saying we're not going to make that offer for you for 2026 at this point in time. And it may have been a ploy from his manager to kind of force the issue early because they knew he had Penrith lined up waiting. But if that's how it went down, I don't really have a problem with it. I'm not too concerned about his comments either because I don't think they were that bad. He did state that he couldn't get to the form that he had shown at Parramatta, and I thought he was fairly open about that. He did say a couple of negative things about the club, but I think it's not a bad move to get him to move on, especially when you have a guy like Sam Fainu come through the way he has. He is the premier second rower of this club, and if we can pick up someone else, a similar style of player, then I think we're better off without ice and without Bateman as well.
Mm. I'll circle back around in a minute to that point that you just made there, Gary. Senior players and how much is on the club in terms of responsibility and how much is on themselves in terms of underperforming the past couple of years. And it looks like potentially 3 or 4 of them could be heading for the exit door, all forwards at the end of the year. But on John Bateman specifically, Jordan, there was news this week that I think since you did in the last podcast, I think, Gary, it's broke since then, hasn't it? Since you and Joel.
Was it either Monday or yesterday?
Yeah, I think Monday. So the deal is at the moment, it hasn't been confirmed by the club, but the news is he's going to be loaned out to Warrington for the rest of the Super League season, but then return to see out the rest of his contract. He's contracted for 2025 and 2026. He signed a 4-year deal starting in 2023. The move apparently frees up between 100 and 150K in the salary cap. Bateman rumoured to be on close to 700,000 a season. Jordan, sort of reading between the lines here, and I think you've got to. I'd be surprised if he plays another game for the Tigers.
Yeah, definitely. There was actually a very interesting, I can't remember if it was in the Telegraph or the Sydney Morning Herald, there was an interesting part in the end of the article where it actually mentioned that we had to cancel his current contract so he could sign with the Super League and that his future at the club would be reassessed at the end of the season. For me, that really points to a fact that it is going to come to a head probably towards the end of the season. He's never really settled here. He's had a few sporadic games where he's really put in, but I think the frustration and the success, the minimal success we've had as a team has come out in his performances. I was a big fan of the signing when it happened, but I feel he is probably better off, especially at this stage of his career and in the later stage of his career, probably finishing it off in England.
Yeah. A little bit of a part-time footballer. He got here late last season because he couldn't get into the country. And now, so it was a couple of weeks late getting here, and now we're letting him go a couple of weeks early in his second season here. It's a strange situation. He was also very late getting back to training. I know he played international football at the end of last year. It really does make me question his commitment that he has shown to the club. The trip back to England last year during a bye week, which I thought his form for our club was really good last season, up until that trip to England. And when he came back, I just don't think he was able to get the same performances out of his body. And I don't think we've seen a great form from him this year. So this is a contract I'd like to see us get off our books. And hopefully this is the first step to making that happen.
I was going to say, Gary, I mean, I try not to just have a crack at players personally for what they're putting in, but this one's one that's obviously there's information that we don't know, but there's a line of, a character line there for me. Even going back to his Canberra days, I remember they were playing in the grand final and he was talking about his contract during grand final week. He left Canberra early. He left the Super League club he was at early. Looks like he's going to leave the Tigers early. He couldn't wait to go back to England. Like you said, during the bye, he was late back for the preseason. And I don't know if that's just him taking advantage of the club sort of pandering to him and on big money. But, the latest news tonight, and I don't put a lot of credence in those 360, was that Benji actually called him out, whether it was after the game or in a video session on Monday. And Bateman went straight back at him in front of all the other players, which to me is really poor for a senior player. Like if you have issues with the coach, I don't mind having it out, but to have it out in front of the whole squad, to me, almost shows the same mentality he's had on the field this year, which he just can't cop it. Like he just, if something goes against him, he wants to spit the dummy. And I'd be very happy to see the back of him at the moment. I know there's stuff that's probably a little bit unfair, maybe that I've said, or stuff on his side that's maybe he's unhappy with things. But Jordan, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up. As much as I don't like to give credit to someone like James Hooper, but yeah, that comment about the fact that apparently Benji is treating junior players like senior players and senior players like junior players, I think that's fair. It's our juniors that are showing up our senior players. It is these young kids who are coming through and showing us that they are the ones who deserve to be there, and not the senior leadership group, bar Appy, who are letting us down constantly.
And was treated as such a junior player who was given the captaincy last weekend. So now that's the first I've heard of those comments. I don't watch 360, so I hadn't heard about that. And what I do think is, as a senior player with the
they did rumor, sorry, Gary, they did rumor that he was going to be dropped this week. So maybe that brought all this to a head.
And I will say, as a senior player, a player of his experience, I think he has a right to have a conversation with the coach about the direction of the club and how he sees the club moving forward. I think that's well within his rights, but it has to be done in a certain way. And as a senior player, you don't do that in front of the rest of the playing group. You go to Benji's office and you sit down and you have that conversation with him privately. And if that's happened in front of players, and when you have a look at his ill discipline on the field that we've seen this year, it's probably just probably just an extension of that. Then, that's not on. He's supposed to be showing the direction for these young players, and I think Jordan's exactly right. Our best leaders this year, outside of Appy, have been those young guys coming through, and that's what we've got to fix at this club. We need these young guys to have the support around them who show the right example out on the field. And I don't think anyone here can say that Bateman's discipline out on the field has been an example we want younger players to follow. And his performance on the weekend was extremely poor. His discipline, again, was extremely poor. Even arguing, the way he argued, there was a try scored and he was arguing with the referee. He carried the ball out across the goal line while arguing with the referee, refusing to give it to the opposition. Despite the try being reviewed at that point, it hadn't been awarded. And that sort of behaviour, that niggling sort of behaviour, not just with other players, but referees, I don't think that's what we need at this club at this point in time.
Gary, I did listen on Sunday night, and you were pretty savage on some of the senior guys, including Adam Dewey, and I agreed with a lot of things you said. A couple of fans weren't happy with it. I probably thought the only senior player that escaped criticism that I actually think deserves criticism, and I've been a fan of him this year, is Aiden Caesar, because he's going to miss a quarter of the season through suspension now, 6 games. He's also been sin-binned a couple of times, and I think he's had 5 charges against him, and I think his footy the last 3 weeks has been really, really poor.
And I think he was really lucky not to get longer, because that tackle was nearly identical. It was the same style, the way he lifted himself up. And it's not the classical hip drop where they lift themselves off and they come down on their hip. He lifts both legs off the ground, and it's almost identical to what he did to get the 4-week suspension earlier in the year. So I was really surprised when it only came back at 2. I actually think, though, and probably the reason why I wasn't more critical, is I'm happy with the opportunity it provides our club. I'm really interested to see how Latu Fainu and Lockie Galvin go. We've also got Talon De Silva there. We've got these young guys, and Talon was great on the weekend. And I thought Latu started to show a little bit of that potential in the game on the weekend. So I'm really keen to see him get a little more time. I've said all year I don't really want Latu and Galvin playing together for an extended period, because both being young, I like to have an experienced half kind of mentoring them. But I think with Jerome Luai coming over next year, and I think partnering them up for the next 6 weeks or so, to end out the season, I think it's probably good experience for the both of them. So I'm happy to see where that goes. So I didn't even really check to see how long Caesar got, because that's how disappointed I am in his form. He almost didn't warrant criticism on Friday night, on Sunday's pod, because I was just pleased.
Sort of just looking around the forums, Jordan, the past few days, it's sort of like that chicken or egg thing, that a lot of the guys sort of just debating, what comes first, or what is more responsible. Is it players individual? When we signed these guys, we did it back in 2018 with a heap of senior guys, Josh Reynolds, Madalino, Packer, all underperformed. Similar pattern seems to be happening here with the senior guys that look to be on the way out. Is it club's responsibility that these guys come in and struggle? Because they come in with the right intent, I'm sure, And some of them start fast. Like Clemmer started fast, Bateman started fast. Appy's been probably the one that's been consistently good throughout, even though I think his form's dropped probably the last 4 or 6 weeks. But how much of it is it just personal responsibility and the fact that we maybe have the wrong senior players, and how much is it, no, this club culture is poor and this is where your career goes to die if you're a senior player?
I think it's the West Tiger effect. As you said, they come in, they start fast, they come in with the right intent. You know, in comparison to when we signed the likes of Reynolds, Madaleno, Packer, and whatnot, we probably signed them out of desperation. When we got Appy, that was a great signing. We got Papali'i. It was a great signing, except there was always the conjecture that he didn't want to come. I was happy with the Clemmer signing. I thought it was too long of a deal, but I was actually happy. I thought he would provide some grunt. Same with Bateman. Again, I thought it was also too long of a deal, but I think just the effect it has with how long we've been circling the drain, it does have an effect on players. Losing has an effect on any sport, whether it's community, professional. If you don't get those wins, it's hard to get up to go again and, put your body on the line to really put in. But at the same time, you need them to put in to get yourself out of that position. So responsibility falls on both sides like anything, but I feel we need that circuit breaker. We've heard about Richardson talk about how Roy Asatasi was that circuit breaker for South Sydney. I think Luai will be, hopefully, that circuit breaker for us. But, yeah, I think a lot of the responsibility this year does fall on those senior players for their performances.
I think one thing that's going to be crucial moving forward is we've got some more new players coming in next year. I think we need a couple more, and with the players we got leaving, there's going to be a few more players coming in. I think what's going to be really crucial is getting a good start. So you get those players into your club. And I think the fact that we've had some poor starts over the last couple of years, or we've had parts of the season where things go really dreadful, like a 9-game losing streak that we had this year, that's when it gets hard. That's when when you're new to the club or you've only been at the club for 18 months, it's what are you fighting for? You're there for your pay, but you're not winning games. You're not a player that's come through the junior ranks at the club. You're not someone who has supported the club growing up. All that sort of stuff. That's when it gets really hard. If we can get some new players in next year and we get a good start, maybe that can kind of snowball in the opposite direction to how things seem to snowball at the West Tigers at the moment. That when things start to go wrong, it just builds up, gets worse and worse. And then you get to this point in the season like we do every year, and you start to question the effort of some players, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I don't want to just sort of rubbish all these senior guys, even though they have been, like we've been discussing, our poorest players. I think it's probably, Jordan, a little bit easier for the younger players, just in terms of they don't have the scars that some of these senior guys have. Whereas if they come in, they've been winning all their junior footy, they're probably happy to be in the NRL, some of them, in their first 6 or 8 games. They're maybe not as, burnt by losing 3 or 4 games in a row as, Clemmer's come into the last couple of years of his career. Same with Bateman, and the fact you're losing every week. I think that's probably played a factor in some of their form this year, because I think both of them, definitely Clemmer and Bateman, started off well in 2023, just on the fact that it looks like potentially 3 of them could be out the door next year, being Steph, Bateman, and definitely Papali'i. No one at the moment to replace them. It's rumoured that we have at least 1.3 million to spend, potentially up to over 2 million if Steph decides to leave, which is a war chest, as Richardson said. And I'm paraphrasing here, but he was saying sometimes you've just got to, wait for something to fall out of the tree. And he referenced Inglis and Ben Teo and a couple other signings that appeared for him around Christmas time at previous clubs. Do you think that's a bit of the strategy here, is the fact that, okay, these guys are solid first graders, but clearly they've been here for 2 years and we're running last? And he did actually say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I just took that as him talking about, well, what's the point going in with this same squad next year when we've run last 2 years in a row with it? Are you worried by the fact there's no one rumoured to come in, or do you think Richo's on the right track here, even though fans are sort of pretty concerned at the moment?
I really feel like look at some of the signings that we've gotten over the last sort of kind of period. They've all been in the off season. A lot of players we weren't known of or linked to, we ended up picking up, and I have no doubt there will be some people that will become available, and will probably be the club that has the money to go after them. But at the same stage, I don't want to keep getting recruits halfway through preseason. I don't want to be picking up players and we're on the back foot again, and they've only had half a preseason or a quarter of a preseason with us. So it would be nice to try and go into the start of the 2025 preseason with knowing what our squad is majority going to look like. The roster spots is obviously a big concern. There are a couple of players, and not just the big money players like Bateman and Clemmer and everyone else, but people in the squad that probably have not necessarily a right of being there, but don't fit in, like Toomuth, and obviously Aiden Caesar with his option for next year, Sullivan and whatnot. We've got to create roster spots to open them up, even for some of the younger kids, if we want to bring them into the squad later. But we really need to bolster the forwards, especially if Steph leaves. We need probably 2 hard-nosed forwards to really play off the back on for Luai for next year.
Gary, do you think that's sort of becoming the strategy? I sort of thought maybe 6 weeks ago, Richo had maybe 1 or 2 players maybe earmarked as potential signings up his sleeve, but I just think he wants to clear the decks here and give cash available and hope something falls out of the tree based on his previous experience. And like Jordan mentioned there, the fact that players will become available. There's already, dramas at Newcastle. They're going to have to get rid of a few players. But is it a risky way of going about it, or is it the only way to go about it if you want to create some of these roster spots and get rid of some of the senior guys?
If you're doing planned signings, the players we would have been signing for next season were signed last preseason. That's why we've got Jerome Luai. He was signed last preseason. That was a well planned out signing. If you're at this point of the year and you're still looking for players next year, then you're waiting for players who are going to be released or aren't going to fit in at their club, because all the off-contract signings are already been completed. So no matter what, we end up in this situation, because when you get a wooden spoon, you've got to turn over your roster. But the only way you can do that is by taking what other clubs are letting go, because players are signing 18 months out from the start of that season they're signing for. So we don't have much choice other than to do that. We can start planning for 2026 and targeting the specific players who are off contract that we want for 2026. We can start doing that now. But for next season, we do have to wait to see what other clubs are letting go. And most of that's going to happen after the season, because that's just the way the NRL is now. You can't sign. There's not many players who go into an off season who are off contract for the start of the following year. So at this point, when you're about to pick up your third wooden spoon, your only option is to see what other clubs are looking to offload, and you're trying to get rid of players yourself, and that's where the horse trading kind of comes in. But that's the game we have to play because of where we're finishing, because we're finishing down the bottom of the table, and just the fact of the way the NRL's ran now.
So just to clarify, Gary, do you think he's on the right path? Like, do you think he's been forced into this because of the previous
I don't think he has
administration's contracts?
Look, part of it is that, but it's also the part that we've failed this year. Because we've failed this year, he needs to overturn a larger part of the roster. Now, to do that for the following season, there are no players who are off contract for next season, so you have to wait. So his hand is definitely forced. It's just the game that we have to play because of the NRL
Jordan,
world.
He did say in the preseason, Jordan, and he's quite bullish, Richardson. I wonder if he'd be as bullish now. He probably will be, but maybe behind the scenes, be interesting what he says. He said, we've got 80% of our roster sort of ready to go, fit and
80%
firing?
going out the door.
I'd say it's a lot less than that, really.
From everything I've ever heard, and people who have had dealings with him before, you learn pretty quick that he's going to tell you what he wants, how he wants it, and why you should take it. So it's more of a case of, I think he will. I have a lot of faith in he's going to improve this roster, like he already has with the likes of Luai and Taruva. You know, that Taruva signing coming out of the blue was something that us as Tigers fans were very, we're not used to. We're not used to hearing things about that, coming out of the blue and negotiations being on the down low. So I have a feeling we might get a couple of surprises. I think we're all a bit impatient because we really want to see things improve now and what we're looking for next year. But yeah, I think he will get the job done to at least have us in a steadfast position to improve up the ladder next year.
And really, pre-season this year, what are you going to say? Are you going to come out and say, "Oh, we need to overturn 50% of our roster"? Because that doesn't set you up for a good year. The players hear that comment too, not just the fans. So he has to be really careful what he says in that regard.
I think it's obvious, Gary, the players not heard, but they saw him go over to England, and that's probably resulted in a few of them dropping off.
Well, and I'm sure he's told some of the managers that to do their best to find something else because they're not really wanted here, which is what I think happened with Ice. So, if you're running last, it's the nature of the beast, I think, in the NRL.
So how many, putting on the spot here, Jordan, how many of the 4 forwards, being Stefano, Clemmer, Bateman, Papali'i, we know he's going, so how many of those 4 will be playing for the West Tigers next year?
1. It'll be Clemmer.
How many of them do you want, Jordan?
None.
So you're happy for the Broom to be put right through that forward pack?
I think it needs to be. I was patient 8 weeks ago for Stefano. I'm not anymore. If that's even if we improve slightly but don't make finals next year, how long until he starts kicking stones again? And woe is me, my performances aren't doing well because I'm at a struggling club. Well, mate, roll up your sleeves and start making the hard yards, do the dirty runs. I haven't agreed with Gordon Tallis a lot over his career, but he said the same thing. Whether your job's at a top club or a bottom club as a front rower, your job is the same. Roll your sleeves up and do the hard work.
I did hear that, Jordan, and I remember just nodding my head because the usual journo hacks were saying he's got to leave the Tigers and blah blah and whatever. But like when Brisbane were coming last, Payne Haas was standing out every week as a forward, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. You need those guys to do the hard work in the middle. I'm sick of this. Oh, I'm at a struggling club and, this person needs to leave the Tigers. Yeah, all well and good. Yeah, we want them individually to do well, but wouldn't the NRL be a better place if we were actually up there? Wouldn't we be a better place? Like the success story. I'm dreaming of the day where we actually make the finals and those players, those 17 players who made that happen, can stand there with their head held high and go, you know what? We broke it. We broke the drought. We're in there. Time to, what's the next goal? When's the premiership? When's the next milestone to kick this off? And that's what I see in the likes of Galvin and De Silva and Lalili. I see these kids being the ones that we're going to stand around and go, they did it for us.
In regard to Gordon Tallis's comments, the one thing I will say is, yes, the job's the same as a front rower and a prop forward, but it is slightly easier if you have someone else to follow. Now, if you have a really dominant forward who does the first hit up or does the hit up before you and you get to follow off the back of his play the ball, that does make your job easier. But that makes you the number 2 prop. And the number 2 prop, you're not paying $800,000 a year for. So if Steph sees himself as one of those premier props in the game, then Gordon Tallis is exactly right. It shouldn't make any difference. But if he goes to a club like the Melbourne Storm, I don't know that he's going to be that number one prop, and I think he'll benefit from that. But to me, that doesn't make him one of those high paid props. So it's really a catch-22 situation for him, because if he is one of those elite props like the Payne Haas is a perfect example you just gave, Eddie, then he should be able to do that no matter where he is, especially at a club where the hooker you get to run off is Api Coruscant, because you won't find a better hooker to bring you onto the ball, the way he gets his forwards onto the ball, the way he isolates defenders for his front rowers. If you can't do it here, if you can't be that number one prop here, then you can't do it anywhere.
Jordan, Gary always tells me to turn off 360 because it just makes me angry. But do you think, like, genuinely, like, the media in this day and age, and specifically that show, has played some sort of part in this club just being in a vicious cycle? Because obviously, if you're at the bottom of the table, you deserve some flack. But I just find the clickbait nature of it and encouraging players to go to the top clubs all the time. Players and stuff are watching these shows and they get clicks. And I just think, back in 2003 and 4, when I know that's back in dinosaur years, but back when we were a struggling club back then, we just weren't in the news because you'd talk about the big sides and the good sides. But it's just the culture of the media these days is to just eat a side at the bottom of the table.
They are partially responsible for the cycle, but I also think us as fans are as well, because we do bite into it. We do, and admittedly, I'm the same. I've actually stopped watching it, but I do see the clips on social media and I see what things are being said, and I take interest specifically in what Tigers things are being spoken about, which is obviously nearly every episode for them. They'd have a 15-minute show if we didn't exist. Yeah. But the constant put down and the pile on that we get, even for decisions, you could put one decision for one club against ours and they would be identical, but the story would be completely different. It would be the Melbourne Storm revel in making this decision of letting this player go compared to how did we let that under-12s player go who's now a under-16-year-old sensation. It's a never-ending cycle. And the fact that the media, I know players say, I don't listen to it. That's rubbish.
They hear it.
They hear it. They always hear it. And when they're going, this person's interested or this person's interested, managers are the same. And they should be that they would be this kind of player if they weren't at the Tigers. It gets to them. It gets in their head.
Gary, just sitting back there smiling.
Well, I think you got it right when I told you not to watch the show. I'm not someone who watches NRL 360. I occasionally get clips or have a look at clips because Eddie tells me something that's happened, but to me, my response to you when you told me about how they carried on yesterday was I don't care, and I don't care, but I will say it does have an effect on a lot of our fans, and that look, we're going to be a disenfranchised fan base when you haven't made the finals. Is it 13 years now? Whatever it is, that's going to be a disenfranchised fan base. But those sort of shows play on that, and I think make that worse. And that negative feeling that is around the club just gets build up, not just by the fans who probably have a right to be angry, but by the constant negative media, which we're brought on ourselves. You can't say that the club's not to blame for that because we haven't performed in so long. But those sort of stories and those sort of shows don't improve the situation for us at all. They make it worse, and they don't improve it for fans. I don't like the way they carry on, so I don't engage with it.
I mean, it is ironic, Gary, that they sort of go on about having a bad culture, but if you look at the Fox Sports culture, I mean, Paul Kent's just got sacked. I mean, James Hooper's had DUI charges and jumping on a car bonnet. Paul Crawley had time off this year, so they're not exactly what's the saying? It's glass houses, isn't it?
Yeah, but do we want people looking under the hood of the West Tigers podcast as well?
But if you're going to be on national media show, right, and you're going to go after people or clubs and attack them relentlessly for having a bad culture, I mean, they had nothing to say when Paul Kent got got sacked. They wouldn't talk about that, obviously,
No,
but I find it very, very ordinary.
and it's exactly right. Like, people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, and that's probably what it comes to. But as I said, that's part of the reason why I don't care what their opinion is. It's part of the reason why I don't take their opinion seriously. And you have a look at, like, a lot of the journos on there. They might as well have you or I on there, Eddie, because they don't have quality. They never played. They're no different to us. They may have done some media training, but mate, I'd rather listen to what your opinion is on the club and your thoughts on the club than someone like Hooper. And you know I don't listen to you, so that says a lot.
Let's move on. Let's preview the Warriors games, boys. It's 6 o'clock Friday night. Actually, not too bad a record against the Warriors overall, Jordan. Winners, we've won 16 out of 36. Actually won 6 out of 14 at Mount Smart. I can't remember the last time we won there. We must have won early there in the 2000s because probably first time we've played there. Well, actually, I think we might have played there last year. But do you give us any chance of turning it around Friday night? Very young side name.
If we can win the middle, I do. If we can somehow find a way to stop Fanua Blake and their edge forwards, I think we can. We can definitely give it a shake. We need to start right though. We need to start first. We need to be. I think us being the first team to score will be extremely important in this game, mainly for a confidence for such young halves, for two 19-year-olds. If they can get us ahead on the scoreboard early, I think that will just pick up their confidence for the rest of the game. And it's going to be up to, I know we've said a lot about our senior players, but the senior players in this team, as few and far between as they are, they're going to have to protect these two. They're going to have to set it up for them. They're going to have to shield them from, because they're going to have a lot of traffic coming their way. They're going to have a lot of big forwards coming their way, and they're going to have to protect them in the way so they can actually do their game plan, play to their strengths, and hopefully get us on the front foot early, and the Warriors will start to panic.
It's interesting, Gary. No Bateman, no Clemmer, no Caesar, no Dewey. Jordan Miller also drops out, but I think the most exciting thing, don't want to speak for everyone, but is watching that two 19-year-olds in the halves. How do you think they will combine? Do you think it'll be left and right? Do you think Latu will be dominant? Or Galvin's been, I'd say, more dominant than Caesar throughout the year in terms of getting his hands on the ball. How do you think that combination will look?
I think we got a little preview of it last weekend when when Latu actually came on last weekend. Caesar went to lock. So Caesar went into the lock roll, and they were playing in the halves last weekend. And I think for the most part, they were playing left and right, but there were times where Galvin swung both sides. So that will be interesting to see. It's what I'm going to be watching closely. But the big thing for me is I think the best football we've played this year is when we put more young guys in. Yeah, that game against the Raiders was a very young team, youth across the park. I see it as a positive. So let's get some players in there who probably aren't as jaded as some of the senior players. And you're right, they're going to need a little bit of protection, but a little bit of youthful exuberance, I think, is going to go a long way for this team. A little bit of excitement. I'm sure Fainu is going to be excited to be starting his first game. He hasn't started in the NRL before. He hasn't spent much time in the halves in the NRL, so it's a massive weekend for him this weekend. Again, he's playing with two of his brothers, so I think that's an exciting moment. And I thought Galvin played the best game of his career last weekend. So there's a lot of positives for me going into this game, and I'd much rather see these young guys have a go for the last month or so of this competition than guys who we look like might not be here next year. Let's see what the young guys can do.
Stafford Toa also comes back in. Jordan, I mean, he's had a season to forget. I think he's only played a few games, got injured in a couple of them.
I forgot he existed.
Where do you see his future? On the train out of the place like some of the other senior guys, or not?
So I've never been on the Stafford Toa bandwagon. He got a bit of stardom, pardon the pun, in that game against the Cowboys where he absolutely bathed Valentine Holmes. But we've seen that once in one game. He has some good qualities, defensively questionable. I've never really gravitated towards him as a player. I think he has all the potential in the world, like a lot of players we've had, but I think this is more just a stopgap because Naden's not playing because they're trying to get him out the door. Olam's injured. They're maintaining Dewey's workload, aka I think he was dropped. But I think it's more of a case of who was left in the cupboard to really put him out there.
I'm actually pleased that neither Naden or Sullivan got picked this weekend. I think that sends the message. Like, there was all the talk that they wanted to stay at the club despite being offered to other clubs to regain their position. I think sending a message that even when we're this depleted on troops, that you're still not going to play first grade. If you want those guys to move, then I don't think you could pick them this weekend. So I think that was a smart decision.
Sorry, Jordan, go.
No, I really just on something Gary mentioned before with Aiden Caesar going to lock. I even hope, as long as Galvin and Latu are actually doing well, I really hope Benji actually sticks with these two for the rest of the year. Mainly for the purpose of if they do well and they show some great signs, I actually want it more to be for Latu and Galvin to sort of kind of realise that they have the potential with Luai, with Appy and Talon next year that they can all find a way to fit in the squad, whether that's Latu at 13 or Galvin at 13. They can find a way to make a combination for them to be the spine moving forward along with Buller so that we can hang on to all of them and that they have that part in the squad with Talon at 14 to give Appy a break throughout the year. Luai at 7, Galvin at 6, and Latu even at 13 because he is defensively strong, or even possibly Galvin at 13 due to his size and him filling out. I want them to work together and learn that they have a future here and they could really build something special with Luai next year.
I think that's crucial. I think, and I agree with you, I think both Galvin and Fainu are both players that could transition to that 13 role. Next year might be a little bit of a stretch because they're still only kids, but they both have the potential in that role. So it's something I tend to agree with you. It'd be great to fit them all in. But we've got to be really careful because we don't know what Galvin's going to do. So I think getting Fainu time and making Fainu feel involved and he has a position in this NRL squad is really crucial, just in case Galvin makes a decision in November to sign elsewhere.
Prediction time, boys. Gary, he made fun of my prediction last week when I said it would be 34-28 to South. He said, how are we going to score 28 points? So I do note, Gary, that we did score 28 points, although we did.
But we led in 42. So
we led in 42. So I was wrong, but I don't know what your score prediction
You're right,
was.
but you're wrong. Is that correct?
Jordan, what's your score prediction for Friday night?
Well, Jordan doesn't get to give predictions because he did predict 3 wins in a row.
Oh, to be fair, I was going to
crashing down.
Jordan, I was going to bring that up, but at that time when you predicted that, I predicted no wins for the rest of the year. So I thought you've been more right than me because we did win 2 in a row, which is close to your 3 in a row. And
it's not 3 in a row, though, is it? It's not 3 in a row, though, is it?
There's still time.
So you're going to double down on that prediction?
I will stand by it until round 27, and I'll stand by it afterwards.
So we're going to win 3 in a row before the end of the season, Jordan.
Does the bye count?
Yes. Yes, that's 2 points. And we got Parramatta in the last game, Gary.
It doesn't go into the wins column. It doesn't count.
I'm sorry, Gary. Eddie said it counts. That's good enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Boys, Gary, what was your prediction?
Let Jordan give his prediction.
I'm always the optimist. I will go Tigers 30-22.
Okay, Gary, I'm going to go. I think we will play well, but the defensive resolve's not there, and that's probably no surprise with the amount of changes we're making. So I'm going to go 32-22 Warriors.
So we're only getting 22 points this week. The Warriors have been. They're not the side they were last year. They're nowhere near it. I think they're running about 14th. This is a game that if we want to get off the bottom of the table, it's a game we have to win. So I'm going to tip the Tigers. I'm going to put it 20-18, and the Tigers get up.
Quiz time, boys. It's a multiple choice. The first question. It's a bit of a obviously Tigers Warriors theme around this week. Question 1. Which of these people was seen on the television broadcast reacting to Christian Inu's late match-winning try that sealed our fate in 2011? I was at that game. I wasn't on the TV camera as far as I know. Were you at that game, Jordan?
Unfortunately, yeah. I was actually right in line with Tim Moulton when he should have just put a finger on Inu and just counted as a tackle.
Not my favourite player, Tim Moulton. But I mean, Gary, the question, the multiple choice is A, after the full-time siren, did the camera show Warriors supporters? B, was it Tim Sheen? C, was it Steve Stratton from the podcast on the TV? Or D, was it all of the above?
I'm going to go with D.
Jordan?
I'll go with Steve.
Well, you're both right, but Gary's more right because it was everyone. He's got an actual photo here. I can't show it because we're not a visual.
See, Jordan's only ever part right.
He looks fine. He looks very fit back in the day. He looks like he could have played this game, Gary. Steve?
Yeah, I was saying when
Tigers polo.
Yeah, I haven't seen the photo, so
okay, I'll send you the photo. But he looks furious, as he would be.
That's just Steve's resting face.
I was at that game as well. Question 2, boys. It's a true or false. I'll go to you first, Jordan. We scored no points in the second half of that heartbreaking 2011 semi-final loss. Is that true or false?
It's true.
Gary?
That's true.
No, you're both wrong. It's false. We led 18-6 at halftime, and we kicked a penalty goal in the second half, and we lost 20-22. I seem to remember for some reason, Gary, in that game, or Jordan, with 5 minutes to go, I think we're in front, and either Farah or someone put in a grubber around halfway and turned the ball over.
They went down the blind side. It was Farah and Benji together. Yeah, they went down the blind side, and
I just remember thinking, here we go. This is going to, because, that first 5 minutes of that game, I thought we were going to win 50-0. I think it was 12-0 after 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I remember something. Liam Fulton slips over and lets Felipe Mateo run 30-odd meters to get him down the field.
Yeah. Question 3. How many one-off venues have the West Tigers and Warriors played at nearest to the pin? There's a couple, at least. Gary?
2.
One-off.
I'll go 3. I'm going to use Gary's tactic.
Well,
listen to the pod, mate.
You are closest to the pin, Jordan. It's 6.
6.
Oh wow!
So you got to remember, Gary. Pasco. One of his mantras was we got to play the home games against the Warriors in New Zealand somewhere.
Yeah, but I thought didn't we play them all at the same venue?
Well, we've played.
Weren't they at Christchurch?
Yeah, but SFS was that semi-final game.
Yeah.
SCG we played at. We've played them at Gosford. We've played them at Suncorp. Can't remember that. We've played them at FMG Stadium in Hamilton, and we've played them at Westpac Stadium in Wellington, which is called the Cake Tin, that stadium. I know that stadium.
Surprised we didn't play them at the Hobbit Shire or something in New Zealand.
I wish we'd play this game in Siberia or somewhere. I don't have to watch it. But anyway, question number 4.
Declan, mate.
I know. I didn't even tell us he was going away. So that's how.
No, tried to get him on the pod tonight. No, I'm in Europe.
In Europe, yeah. Good luck to him. Question number 4. Name the 4 players that appeared in the 2002 NRL Grand Final. So the Grand Final that year was the Roosters beating the Warriors. 4 players that appeared in that game who were involved with our West Tigers as either a player or coach at any time.
John Carlo?
Yeah.
Ivan Cleary?
Ivan Cleary was the coach of the Warriors.
How many
Jason Kalis?
Jason Kalis was a player for the Roosters, I believe. Yes. And there's one more. He was a mad front rower, I think, with a bald head.
Russell Packer.
Close. Last name started with a V.
Villasanti?
Yeah, Richard Villasanti. I think played for the West Tigers probably before he played for the Warriors. I might have played for Balmain, did he, Richard Villasanti? Memory's a bit foggy.
My memory's not quite that good.
Honestly,
Last
could not
question,
remember
boys.
the name.
Question 5, it's a who am I? It's another very obscure player, so good luck with this one. I was born in Perth in 1987. I debuted with a New South Wales-based club, making 77 appearances over 5 years. I'll give you a clue, it was the Newcastle Knights. I jetted up to the West Tigers 2005 grand final opponents for 2 years. I went on to play 1 season in the Super League. I returned to the NRL with the West Tigers and played 9 games. In 2014, headed back to the Super League with 3 clubs in 5 years. Represented the Indigenous All-Stars 3 times. I mean, the All-Stars game must have been going backwards by then because I wouldn't call him an All-Star. Played for West Tigers and Newcastle Knights. Name was Corey Patterson.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
So Yachty, he's got us again on that one, Gary.
Corey Patterson.
He's getting harder and harder to read as a
Yachty can have 1 point.
Wasn't he involved in that terrible game when him and Akula were our wingers? One game.
That sounds like a Tim Sheens thing to do. Where I remember one time he put Danny Galea at prop, and it was an absolute disaster.
Oh,
but they were the glory days, Gary. I was going to say the glory days. We didn't appreciate them. Maybe this is the glory days now, and we don't appreciate it.
Why? Because we actually have a team.
No, seriously. I want to bring this point up while I'm thinking about it. Is we used to get memmed and laughed at for coming ninth. I mean, ninth would be like,
mate, I'd love ninth.
Joy. Why are we so angry at coming ninth when we were coming ninth?
It's about perspective, mate.
But that's my point. Maybe I'm being very, very defeatist here, but maybe this is the glory days when we still can actually win games in the NRL. Just looking at me.
Why do you
12 games in 3 years isn't a lot, though.
I wouldn't want to live in your head for a day.
You know I'm a glass half empty person, so I've got to...
Mate, you've smashed the glass. Like, it's not just half empty. You've thrown the glass against the wall.
If this is the glory days, wake me up.
Yeah, I don't think it is. But anyway, boys, thank you for jumping on tonight. Seems the other boys are off on all over the world like Declan, so I don't know if he'll be back for a few weeks, and Steve's away for a couple of weeks as well, so we'll have to keep turning the roster over again.
Yeah, a little bit of new blood, I think. I think Joel's just like Richo, he's just pushing people out the door.
When's my break coming up?
Mate, you said you were having a break this week. You're the boss. You decide when you have off, and you can't help yourself.
All right, boys, let's hope for a win on Friday, and no doubt your podcast coming on. Thanks, boys.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Gary.